Hey you lousy skins, it's Comic Crack here with a video about the series Inhumans from Image. In one of my last videos that I did with Mr. Tom, I showed off some of the books that I've been picking up recently. It's few and far between, I can't go every week, so I pick up what I can when I can, and I was a bit, I don't know, I really liked the first issue of this series and I missed out on the second, and then I found out that there was a fourth. I managed to hunt down issues number 2 and 4, so I read the first 4 issues of this, which is as far as they're at right now. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about it and hopefully turn you on to it, because on Wednesday, which is March the 11th, the first trade comes out of the Humans. So hopefully this will pique some people's interest, because I know for me, purely selfish reasons of I'd like to keep this series going because I'm really enjoying it and everything that comes with it. So about a year ago, I did an order to Drippy Books, and they sent me a bunch of postcards and other little bits and pieces here. One of the things that they sent me was this a little bit bigger than a postcard size advertisement for Keenan Marshall Keller and Tom Neely's The Humans. It just struck me, the picture struck me, but for some reason I just didn't look into it, and I'm kicking myself a little bit. A high-octane, no-holds-barred ape biker gang chopper ride into 70s exploitation genre bliss. A clusterfuck of chains, sex, leather, denim, hair, blood, bananas, and chrome. Coming soon from Drippy Books and I Will Destroy You Comics. So they, from what I understand, is they self-published issue number 0. I believe issue 0 came with a 7-inch EP from a group called the Zigzags, who did 2 songs. We'll talk a little bit more about that later too. And I can only assume, again, I haven't read details on it, but I can only assume that it was based on that, and maybe they went to Image themselves and proposed this idea and showed them the 0 issue that they did themselves, and it just kind of took off from there, and they got themselves a little series. I don't know if it's a limited series or if it's going to be an ongoing title, but either way, as long as it's around, I'm going to be sticking with it. So the basic story is about just exactly that, a ape biker gang called the Humans. The first issue, we're introduced to the bike gang as they are taking their friend Mojo, who has died on his last ride with the gang before they plant him in the earth and do a lot of drugs and have a lot of sex, and then get into a fight with a rival gang called, the name is escaping me here, one sec, the Scabs. So there's a look at that page, and there we go. So they get into a fight, and we're kind of just introduced to their whole world. They go back and party where there's more sex and more drugs and more blowing shit up, and that's it. And the kind of the last page is, meanwhile, a mile from the Humans' compound, a weary figure approaches. Next month, Return of the Living Dead. And we find out in the next issue who this is, and who it happens to be is a character named Johnny, who's the brother of the Humans' leader, I guess, for lack of a better word, Bobby. So here's a look at issue number 2. So in this issue, he comes back to town, and we're just kind of introduced to what kind of person he is, and he's a pretty angry dude, and we slowly find out that, well, not slowly, I guess it's within the first half a dozen pages when he's confronted by the cops. People have assumed that he's died in Vietnam, but he hasn't. He's alive, he's coming back to town. The cops warn him not to get entangled again with his brother and that biker gang, which basically he just says fuck you and keeps walking. Gets back with all his friends where they party, and he basically says that, you know, he's not dead and he's no hero, he's not a soldier, I'm not a chimp, I'm not an American, I'm a lowlife misfit, a loser, I'm a goddamn no good punk, I'm a human and I'm back from the dead. So kind of reclaims his position as part of the gang again. And then takes a bunch of drugs and has a bunch of sex and passes out. So there's a look at, you saw a little taste of that in that opening there. The next issue gives us a little more backstory on Johnny and what kind of things he experienced, and, you know, post-traumatic stress and everything, and whatever he's got going on. And then we also learn more about the humans themselves. They keep humans as pets, basically, and they call them skins. And they breed them to fight other skins when they go for a big kind of cage match that's gambling, where they basically gamble with other biker gangs. We also discover that they're trying to develop their own drug because the leader of one of the other groups who kind of organizes this skin fight, a guy named Abe Simeon, is currently in control of all the drugs, and the humans do the drug running for him, like delivering back and forth. They want to muscle in on his territory with their new drug, which they say is a cross between acid and speed and cocaine and whatever else. So it comes on real strong, real fast. So it sends the skins into this kind of crazy rage, which comes into part 4, which is Welcome to the Skin Cage, where we get to see all these groups get together for these death matches. And we're introduced to a bunch of biker gangs here. So here's those pages there. Just more into this entire world. The thing takes place in 1970, I believe, is when it's supposed to take place. I think I saw that on one of the... Oh yeah, here we go. So this particular issue... I'll talk about it afterwards, actually. I'll leave that for a minute. So here's the individual gangs. So Flex Trucking is this Abe Simeon who runs everything. He's got, of course, the cops in his pocket. One of the other gangs is like a Black Power, like a Black Panthers kind of group called the Haters. They're all guerrilla ape power gang from Oakland. There's a hippie group called the Thrill Killers. They run the acid trade in San Francisco. Los Muertos, the dead from Las Vegas. It says, these dudes are strange and keep to themselves. We ain't had no problems with them. There's a group called Satan's Minions, Satanist Viking monsters who live in the deserts. They have no fear and no respect for anything. Rumors say they eat skins, even the cubs. And then the final group is the Mad Fuckers from Los Angeles. Still the Kings of LA, but they're getting so famous they got chapters popping up all over. They even got some weirdo journalist following them around and writing a book about them. So my take of that is the Hunter S. Thompson had written a book about the Hells Angels and kind of followed them around. I don't know if that's kind of a nod to that. But by the end of the issue, we see the Mad Fuckers and the humans kind of enter into a sort of business-ish deal together. So it looks like, I'm assuming all these groups are going to play big parts in the story, but specifically the Mad Fuckers, so we'll see what happens there. So that's where we're left off. A lot of fun. I can totally see why it would offend some people, or people just wouldn't like it. Completely see that. I know La Rasta had said that she tried out the first issue and it just wasn't her thing. Completely understandable. It's not everybody's taste. It's completely my taste as far as that's concerned, though, because it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's really over the top. On the back here, when it says a chopper ride into 70s exploitation genre bliss, is definitely a term to keep in mind. I love all those 70s exploitation movies, and this really does feel like that kind of thing because it's just so over the top. But not only do I like that, I should also mention, let me make sure I get her name right, The Colorist by Christina Colante. I'm not familiar with her name. I wasn't really familiar with Tom Neely until this book. The only person I was the writer, Keenan Marshall Keller. On Drippy Bone, he's also got a book there too, and I had the name, but now it's gone. Galactic. Can't remember. Sorry, my bad. I should be writing shit down. Yeah. So my thread there was, as I went on that little tangent. I really like the book and I like everything about it, but I find that one of the things that really makes it such a quality read for me is all the back matter. Everybody's familiar with Brubaker, and especially in Image, because they have no ads, they keep them to the end. They're willing to do a little more for the creators. It's basically the creator's book. So Brubaker, for example, when he had Criminal come out, that's when I first got exposed to this whole, hey, you can put all this other shit in the back of a book. Articles and like a little kind of letter from him or letters from readers they started kind of really asking for. Even some where they specifically want you to send it in by snail mail. They don't want any emails. Is that Saga that does that? I can't remember. Anyway, they utilize that side of it really well too. So in the back of it is the kind of Humans biker zine called Ape Shit. The Humans Motorcycle Club official newsletter. So this is where the dates come into it. So in issue 1 here, it's November 1970. By issue 4, when I looked, it was February 1971. So it is kind of going along a timeline. So and that's what you kind of get at the back. On the back page is a different pinup by somebody each time, which we'll have a look at the end of the video. This one is a guy, Benjamin Mara, and this kind of leads into the whole other thread as far as it's a name that I've run across before, but never looked into him as much. Seeing him on the back of this and having this information about him inside really caused me to search him out, and I actually ordered the 4 issues of a comic he does, I think it's an ongoing, called Night Business from his comic company called Traditional Comics, which is traditionalcomics.com. I believe he has a book coming out on Fantagraphics as well too, a collection of stuff. I don't know if it's a specific series. It might be. I'm not sure which one though. He's got a few series. So that kind of thing is great. A little artist profile. You get a letters section where one of the characters from the book named Carnes, who loves skins, we found out in one of the latest issues. We get a little gag about the colorist who keeps putting shit into the book, and you know, then we also get a soundtrack, links to 2 bands. Every issue is 2 bands. This first issue is, or was rather, the Zigzags and Smelly Tongues. The idea is that with each issue there's going to be 2 songs to download for free, and after a certain amount of time you're going to have a whole soundtrack to the comic, The Humans, that I believe is eventually going to get released on vinyl. The Zigzags have a couple of songs already that have been released on a 7-inch. But it really makes for an immersive experience as far as you read the book, you find out this information, the next stop is the computer, looking up the artists, looking up the bands, listening to the tracks. So I mean, your $2.99 that you're spending for a book becomes this, I don't know, just a much more enjoyable experience, and really helps bring you into the world as far as even looking up the creators and discovering Drippy Bone books if some people hadn't heard of it, or some of these other small independent small press publishers. It's just fantastic exposure all around. It's a quality story. I really applaud Image for everything that they've done over the past couple of years, as we're all really aware of. I mean, they're really, for my money anyway, they're real stiff competition for DC and Marvel. I mean, I don't buy any DC anymore. I still buy Marvel mostly for me and my son, but I do still buy some for myself. But when I have a limited budget, like these days, when I go to pick up some books for myself, 90% of what I'm picking up is Image books, just because of the chances that they're taking, because of the variety of titles that they have on offer, because of the variety of artists, because of everything that's included in it. I'd rather spend my money there. I'd rather support I'd rather support this company and some indie publishers than Marvel and DC. Marvel and DC aren't dying for my money, you know, and some of it, if I'm just looking to read, it's just not my first, it's not my first choice. So the kind of final thoughts are just a fantastic series. If you're a fan of my channel, and I'm assuming if you're watching this, you've been with me for a while, you know my tastes, I'd say give it a shot. But again, I mean, just to kind of say it again, it's definitely adult material. There's nudity, there's drug use, there's swearing, there's violence like you wouldn't believe. But to me, that's all a good thing. Yeah, give it a try. So Wednesday, March the 11th is when the first trade comes out. So when you're at your comic shop picking up your books, just have a look and flip through it. And I think the first trades for Image are usually like $9.99. Is that what they are? $10 US, something like that. It's a well spent $10 for sure. And then if you do like it, make sure that you hop on the issues too, because I'm fucking greedy and I want this book to keep going. So the more of you that buy it, the more I'm gonna get to read myself. So that's about it for that. So I'll put links down below for their sites and other things pertaining to this. But support this book and support small press like Drippy Bone Books. Thanks very much for watching. Let's look at some, I'll show you now. It'll be like a little collage of the back covers with a soundtrack by a band called Weed Eater, who I saw last year. They came through town and it was an amazing show. So yeah, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon.